This is the Untold Italy travel podcast, and you are listening to episode number 222.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week, your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Ciao everyone! I hope you're all happy and well and excited to visit Italy if you're heading there over the summer months or happily planning your future adventures. A couple of months ago, I was back in Venice for a few days with the Untold Italy team, and we had such a lot of fun exploring the city. It was a little bit cold and wet, but Venice is always beautiful, and we managed to see and do a few things new to me and discover some hidden pockets of the Lagoon City that most visitors miss out on as they are rushing through. And it got me thinking about the essential Venetian experiences I wish everyone could have and those that I return to time and again, and of course I wanted to share them with you. These are those things that are unique to Venice and will stay with you for a long time to come. It's a choose-your-own-adventure story too, because over the years I realised that these activities fall into a few different themes or categories. So without further ado, let's get started as I share my favourite Venetian experiences. And number one on the list should be no surprise because Venice is, of course, a city built on water. But it does constantly surprise me that so many people miss out on the pleasure of viewing and experiencing life on the water Venetian style. Or perhaps it's limited to a squash trip inside a vaporetto or water bus. Anyway, if you're going to Venice, please make sure you spend some time on a boat or vessel of some sort so you can truly appreciate this incredible city from its foundations, the magnificent lagoon. And the first way, and this is not going to be a big surprise, that you should experience the city from the water is on a gondola. The gondola is a symbol of Venice, an icon of the city. They are sleek, romantic, and simply one of life's must-dos is to ride in one, in my opinion. You can pick up your gondola on a secluded side canal and enjoy the serenity as it glides along the water with only the slightest sound from the gondolier expertly manoeuvring the oar in its lock. Your gondola can hold up to 5 people and rides are around 30 minutes costing €80, and it will cost you a little bit more at sunset, but you know it's worth it, especially if your gondolier is inclined to burst into song. Now that's not guaranteed, unfortunately, but the element of surprise is good enough for me. The next way that you can experience Venice on the water is to join a rowing class with Row Venice. And if you're impressed by the gondoliers, then this is a really unique opportunity to learn to row another traditional Venetian boat. At Row Venice, a team of expert female rowers share their skills with visitors and help you to navigate a vessel along the back canals of Cannaregio. And if you're brave, out into the lagoon. Rowing these vessels comes down to technique that you quickly pick up. However, don't think you've mastered it so quickly. These young women tell tales of racing at speed in local regattas, which are humbling to say the least. They go so quickly, many tens of strokes of the oar per minute, that I have sore arms just thinking about it. This is such a fun and great activity for teenagers and anyone who has seen one too many churches and museums during their time in Italy. Getting out on the water and trying out a new skill is such a great way to experience and build a connection with a city. So I was really thrilled to recommend this experience to a client when she mentioned her son was a rower of a different kind of boat. So there you have it. Get out on the water and get to know Venice from the boat while you're rowing it. Couldn't be better. The next way that I want to mention is also like one of those exclusive and probably high ticket items, and that's a water taxi. Have you seen those supremely cool water taxis that Venice has? They're absolutely divine. These wooden retro style boats are sleek and they look like they are for celebrities only, but actually anyone can take one. They are not what you'd call cost-effective, but they are the most efficient form of transportation to get you to and from the airport or around the city, especially if you have a lot of luggage. It is not recommended to bring a lot of luggage to Venice, by the way. And it's also useful if your hotel has its own dock, which is lots of fun, but again, generally restricted to the 5-star hotels, as you can imagine. This last trip, I organised a shared water taxi transfer from the airport to my hotel, and I just love seeing the huge smiles on the faces of the new visitors to Venice who joined me as they cruised into the city in the most fun way possible. George Clooney style, I like to say, or if you've seen photos from the Venice Film Festival, all the stars arrived that way, and so should you. The next Venetian water experience I want to recommend is my favourite boat tour of the city, and that actually makes use of one of these sleek water taxis to show you many different sides of Venice. You join the tour close to Piazza San Marco and take the taxi boat across the lagoon to San Giorgio Maggiore, where you disembark and take in some of the best views of the city. I'll tell you a bit more about that stop later, but it's a wonderful start to this tour that also visits several neighbourhoods, including the Arsenale shipbuilding yard, and goes down many, many small side canals before ending in a grand finale on the Grand Canal, zooming under the Rialto and Accademia bridges. Of course, you have an amazing local guide with you who shares stories of Venice that reveal its unique culture and history. Of course, I will put a link to this tour into the show notes. I've done it a few times now and would take it again in a heartbeat. And the last option to enjoy Venice on the water, and it's probably one that most people take, but I'm going to give you a few tips to make it a really great experience. If it's your only option to get on the water, the Vaporetto or water bus is not a bad way to see the city, especially Vaporetto number 1, which takes you all the way down the Grand Canal. If you do take this option, you need to be strategic and make your way to the back of the ferry or water bus in the outside section, which is pretty small, but from there you have unfettered views of the canal and all the goings-on. Gondolas and taxis weave their way across the waters, along with rubbish or trash boats and all sorts of water vessels. Watching this action is probably my favourite thing to do in Venice because it is something we take for granted generally, how city services are organised in our own cities, but you can't just do that in Venice as there's always water to deal with. So that's my first favourite way to have experiences in Venice on the water, and so now you've seen it from the water, it's time to see Venice from up high. And on the boat tour I mentioned, you go to San Giorgio Maggiore, a church that's on a very small island on the other side of the lagoon to San Marco. You can get there by Vaporetto or take the tour or a taxi. Now, when you arrive, you enter the church and head through to the back where there is an elevator or lift that takes you to the top of the bell tower. The views from up here are absolutely stupendous, 360 degrees all around. You can see right across the lagoon to the Doge's Palace and the Basilica, and also spot all the tiny islands of Venice laid out before you. This last visit that we did, we had a very clear day and we could also see the snow-capped Alps glistening in the distance. I really do think this is the best view in Venice. Another view you might like to try is from the rooftop of the Basilica San Marco. You need to buy the special ticket for this basilica that includes the museum so you can access the rooftop, but it is well worth it. Not only can you see the magnificent gold mosaics of San Marco from a unique elevated vantage point, but then you step out onto the domed rooftop from where you can see the piazza with its elegant historic cafes laid out below you. Across to the Palazzo Ducale, and yes, this is an amazing view that you can soak up for a very long time. Speaking of the cafes, and this is a little bonus tip, they are all well worth a visit to spend an hour or so over the most expensive coffee of your life to enjoy the atmosphere of the piazza. Sometimes there is live music, but the main attraction is people watching and admiring one of the world's most beautiful squares. These are some of the oldest coffee houses in Europe, and you'll also enjoy the smart uniforms of the waitstaff and the beautiful decorations within. Back to the views though, and not quite as high as those I have mentioned, but the scenes of the Grand Canal from the top of the Rialto and Accademia bridges are well worth seeking out. There are only 4 bridges that span the Grand Canal, and these two have some pretty amazing vantage points. You'll see many photographers at the Accademia, in particular at dawn and dusk, chasing that perfect pink sky against the glorious palaces of beautiful Venice. So all of that boat experience and getting up high does tend to make you a little hungry. So the next experience I'd love you all to have when you go to Venice is to eat lots of cicchetti. We've devoted a whole podcast episode to this most Venetian of eating styles, and we'll pop a link to that in the show notes. But for the uninitiated, this is the art of choosing a few small snacks to go with your glass of wine and bar hop your way around town, quaffing and snacking. Whatever you do, don't call them tapas, but you get the idea. You won't find cicchetti in any other place in Italy, so don't be shy to go all in on the experience, either on your own or with a food tour like the one you can do with our friend Monica Cesarato. For lunch, dinner, and all the snacking opportunities in between, cicchetti resolve all your hunger pangs for a while until it's time to taste some more. Now, you want to try a few different types because I have to say it's pretty easy to get stuck in a cicchetti rut when they really are so delicious. So here are a few options that you can try. Bacala, or whipped salted codfish, is absolute heaven. It's difficult to describe, but I'll give it a go. It's kind of like a fish mousse. It's really light and fluffy, and it has quite a subtle flavour. You can find it served on crostini, or little pieces of bread, or on its own, and it's absolutely delicious. Of course, seafood is a big theme, being on the water and on the sea. Anchovies are absolutely wonderful. Do not even think about the ones you get at home. They are disgusting compared to these refined beauties. Also, sardines in Saor, which is a sour onion sauce, are incredibly delicious, and definitely seek out that local specialty. You'll find cheeses and cured meats in a variety of combinations, as well as vegetables prepared different bite-sized ways, and also polpette or meatballs. It's really a fun way to eat. And you can try them all over town. There are literally hundreds of bars in Venice waiting to serve you cicchetti. We went to a favourite of mine in March called El Squero, where the cicchetti are tasty, but they also have a prized position overlooking a gondola workshop, one of the last in Venice. This one isn't in our friend Monica's book on the bars of Venice, but you'll find lots of options there. We'll obviously put a link to the book into the show notes. So now we've made sure that we're not hungry, there's time for a bit of culture, and my best tip here is to peek inside a palazzo. Now, in case you didn't know, Venice once dominated world trade, or at least the European side of it, and Venetians were a very, very wealthy bunch. They made sure they let everyone know about it too. And if you want to experience some of the glitz and glamour for yourself, then the best way to do it is to visit one of the most magnificent palazzos. And the one to rule them all is, of course, on the top of the Venice must-visit list, and that, of course, is the Palazzo Ducale, or the Doge's Palace in English. The Doge, or the Duke, was the ruler of Venice and wielded enormous power. This palace is one of the most extraordinary buildings in Europe and would have wowed great kings and queens with its opulence. Expect room after room of gold and gilded walls adorned in works of art by great Renaissance masters. The palace has a few stories of its own, including famous prisoners and hidden secrets, and it's definitely worth a visit. Art lovers will enjoy stepping inside the Scuola Grande di San Rocco, an incredible palace covered in paintings by Tintoretto. This is quite a well-known site, but really not many people go there, and I just can't fathom why. It's absolutely beautiful, and you can really imagine what Venice was like in its heyday. If you go there, make sure to check out the paintings in the mirrors provided, and you can easily spend an hour just admiring this beautiful building. On the Grand Canal, Car Rezzonico is another favourite of mine. Dedicated to Venice in the 18th century, the rooms are restored to their magnificent Baroque and Rococo glory. There is no pared back minimalism here. It's not Scandinavian style. It's 100% excess, which no doubt appealed to songwriter Cole Porter, who rented the palazzo and staged incredible events, including a flotilla of gondolas. I think there were 20. Sounds incredible. And people walking on tightrope and all sorts of things. Anyway, the palazzo's position on the Grand Canal is unparalleled, and the cafe of the museum is right on the water, and I love it. A little more pared back is Palazzo Grimani, tucked away in a corner close to the Instagram famous Libreria Acqua Alta bookstore. And this palazzo has a small but delightful collection of art amassed by 16th century Doge that includes the sculpture Abduction of Ganymede, suspended from a roof, inspired by the Pantheon. It's really one of those optical illusion artworks that is quite stunning. Now, I could go on, but there are so many delightful palazzi to explore in Venice, each with its own focus, and I haven't even mentioned the churches, which are like mini palaces in their own right. For my last experience that you have to have in Venice is something that you've probably heard before. People often say the best thing to do in Venice is to get lost in the streets, and I have to agree. The further you stray off the Google Maps path, the more intriguing this city becomes. So wander away from San Marco and Rialto and take a step inside the regions or the districts of Dorsoduro, Cannaregio and Castello for a true taste of Venetian life. And moments where you stand in awe of the people of this city who have adapted to life on water. A favourite spot of mine is near the Hospital San Giovanni e Paolo off the Mendicanti Canal. Here you'll see a row of water ambulances lined up ready for action if required. Our guide on the boat tour that we did told us she had to make use of the ambulance service last year when she gave birth to her son. And wow, does that make your mind boggle. I don't know about you, but getting into a small boat to make your way to hospital to deliver your child sounds a little bit terrifying. And then we chatted about getting up and down several flights of stairs with a growing baby that doesn't like being in a baby carrier. The resilience of Venetians is incredible, and it's such a contrast to the opulence of the city's palazzi. I find it endlessly fascinating. So do go on a big long walk around the neighbourhoods, stop for some cicchetti and admire the goings-on. So there you have it, my favourite experiences in beautiful Venezia for you to discover for yourself. Venice is truly magical and awe-inspiring, and you just have to take a little dip into some of its lesser-known experiences to find out why. Most visitors seem to stick on a very well-worn path from Piazza San Marco to the Rialto Bridge, and this is really a very small area and gets crowded very easily. If you're experiencing crowds at all in Venice, then take a left or a right and follow your heart, and you'll find a wonderful part of the city waiting for you. And, of course, if you'd like to follow in my footsteps and visit some of my favourite places or book the amazing boat tour or rowing experience, head on over to our website show notes at untolditaly.com/222 for episode number 222. Grazie mille. Thanks to all our wonderful listeners for your ongoing support of Untold Italy. I really hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, then it would be amazing if you gave us a rating or review in your favourite podcast app. That way we can reach more Italy-loving travellers just like you. Now, if you listen on Spotify, you can also leave comments on each episode, which we really love reading, and they're a great way to show your appreciation. Unfortunately, Spotify hasn't worked out a way for podcasters to reply to questions on that function, but we're pushing for it. Next week on Untold Italy, we'll delve into another aspect of travelling in beautiful Italy, but until then, it's ciao for now. The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.